Hi, everyone. It's Lynn from Devine Central, and I am coming to you from Bristol, Tennessee, if you are following our travels. And today, I want to talk to you about pet pendulums. Now, I'm having a conversation with a good friend and colleague today. Her name is Dr. Michele Jacobson. Michele and I met because we travel in the same fairs and festival circuit. And we've had such a good time together. She's a psychic, a medium, a healer on so many different levels. This is intuitive reading, Reiki, crystal healing, past life work. And what intrigues me the most is all of her various animal communication techniques. So she can do things like choose crystals and the right essential oils for your animal. She can create flower and essential oils, elixirs for them. Does, yeah, and you even do fairy teas and for dogs and cats, right?
I do.
So over the
People, but dogs and cats also, yes.
So over the last couple of years, though, you've created these pet pendulums, and virtually any pet owner, whether they feel like they have a psychic ability or not, can better communicate with their animals. And whether or not they have dogs or cats or fish or lizards or horses or whatever it is, farm animals, they can communicate better with this process. So what I want to do today is have everybody stick around and hear our conversation about this. So, but the first thing I want to address is, if I understand it correctly, you have a PhD in psychology, right? How did that get you into the mystic arts where you are today?
Well, first of all, I've been an intuitive my whole life. I can tell you things from preschool activities, adventures and experiences that I've had. And then I always wanted to balance that with the practical side of understanding why people do the things they do. And as a part of my PhD program, I did work with people and their pets, and it's just kind of blended and grown throughout my life.
That is absolutely fascinating. I've had so much fun watching you. You come to these psychic fairs with all your little pets, all dressed up in little dresses, and people are amazed. You draw them to the booth with these animals. It's so cute. So listen, let's start. I mean, it's such a great concept. Let's start here. Tell us about how a pendulum works.
All right. Many people are familiar with pendulums, but not everyone. But this is like a regular pendulum. And you ask, there's two different ways to get information. You can either ask the pendulum what's yes, and it'll tell you, and then what's no, and it'll tell you. Or there's a different philosophy, and that's kind of one I really like, is you program it. You say yes, 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 no, 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 so that you program the pendulum for the yes and no answers. Basically, a pendulum answers yes or no questions. However, I also like it when people program their pendulum for, and it maybe at an angle or something, a little bit different angle, or work with a pendulum board for unknown, ask more questions, that kind of thing, because that comes definitely handy when you're working with pets.
Oh, that's cool. I never thought about that. Like, or circles, circling too.
You have to be careful of circles, because a counterclockwise circle undoes the pendulum. It cancels the pendulum.
Okay, that's interesting to know too. Okay, so so let's talk about the benefits. Maybe not specific examples, but let's talk about just the benefits of what is a pet pendulum? Tell us about your product, and then tell us how it benefits.
First of all, I showed you a regular pendulum. It's a long pendulum, and it swings whatever your focal piece is. It swings off of a chain, a cord, something like that. Pet pendulums are much shorter. On a pet pendulum, it can hang on a collar. It can hang. My dogs don't wear collars, but they have harnesses. You can put it, if it's a bird, you can put it near a bird cage, near a crate or container, on a bridle, any number of things. So they're much shorter. However, you can also, I would advise, if you're going to really work with a pendulum, that you buy an extender that goes on the pendulum. You just kind of goes on the pendulum, so that you've got something longer to work with when you're asking the yes or no questions or the maybe questions with your pet. The benefit is, well, there's many benefits. First of all, I am an animal communicator, and people always are wanting to understand how to understand their pet. They've got all their questions. The nice thing about a pendulum is you calibrate it to your pet so that this little piece will tell you some information about your pet. I like the ones that also have some means of an adaptation, the lava stone, the ceramic beads, where you can add an essential oil to it, pet-friendly, diluted oil, so that you can, if you're working on an issue, you can get added benefits.
Okay,
so that's also helpful.
So for example, your dog has a skin condition. You can you can create an elixir or put together an essential oil. I'm going to call it package or recipe. Can we call it recipe? That goes in the little vial or whatever that goes with the pendulum, and they wear it all the time. So that brings help. That brings help to their skin issue, or help to their anxiety issue, or help to that kind of stuff. Is that right? Do I have that right?
That is correct. With skin issues, it gives them maybe an overall calming essence. You might want to apply something very topically to a skin issue. But if it's anxiety or other special issues, having some place to put an oil where it's near them, it's that constant aromatherapy that they benefit from. Yes.
Okay. Oh, that's great. Okay, so all right. So how does someone get started with this? How do you calibrate, let's say, for a specific pet? I mean, how, so, well, in the first place, I'm going to put your website, in the comments below, and on the screen here too, before I post it. But they can go and learn more about things. And I noticed too, on your website, you have articles of all kinds. So there's other things on there that people would be really interested. So they really should stop by your website. But if they wanted to learn more about this or buy a pendulum from you, then and use that on their pet, how do they get started, and how do they calibrate? How do they actually use it?
Once you decide you want to use a pet pendulum, you can get them through me. There's other ways that you can get them, although there's not many. I don't know of many other people that handle pet pendulums. So you need to contact me. We can talk about what your needs, your desires, what aesthetically is pleasing to you, and what your other needs are. And then either through my website or contact me via email or even a phone call, so we can talk about it and discuss what you need for the pendulum. This is like a hanging down pendulum. We also have a different kind. Some people say, well, my dog, cat, whatever would chew on something that's hanging down. It has two clips on it, one on each side. So it goes out over the collar. So it's a little closer to yeah, that's a very nice one.
And it looks good.
Yeah. They all have some kind of stones on them that enhance the properties, the qualities that help you connect with the spirit and essence of your animal. And then they all have some way of holding essential oil if you so choose to do that. But if you imagine, like, my arm is your pet, you want to take your pendulum and just do the simplest, actually the very simplest calibration is just having them wear it. The next easiest is to just do a circle, a figure 8 over their body, so that you are blending the energy of the pendulum with your animal. I do recommend, before you do any of that, that you do some clearing. And there's several ways of clearing. I think the easiest, I believe, is intent, where you just kind of wave your hand over the pendulum, and you just say, okay, I clear it, and send off the energy so that it's ready for your pet.
Okay. So one thing that was interesting in our talk is, and then you just put it on the pet, so it doesn't, I mean, it's not a big deal. It's actually quite simple. But you and I were talking the other day about how you could do let's say you have 2 dogs or 2 cats.
Yes.
And they're very close together all the time. You said you could use one pendulum for both animals?
Yes, you can. What you would, here, let me get this.
How would you calibrate that?
Okay, first of all, you've got your pet. And I would do the figure 8 and I would say their name. The two that go with me to events are, I would go Ellie, 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 and then pause for a moment and then pick it up and do the figure 8 with the other one. Nessie, Nessie, Nessie. Then when you ask questions, my pendulum is, well, I'm going to use one with an extender. Is Nessie happy? Yes, she's happy. Is Nessie got a lot of energy today? Yes, that she's got lots of energy today or something. Or is she feeling under the weather? No, she's not feeling under the weather. So you can, and then I can pause for a moment. You only have to pause for a moment because you've got to calibrate it to 2 pets. Is Ellie under the weather? No, she's not under the weather today, or things like that. So
that's simple.
So that's what you can do, just by doing. I would not use one pendulum for more than 2 animals. It becomes the energy becomes too clouded and intense. So it's not as clear. So 2 animals, you can use one pendulum for 2 animals.
Okay. So you have a lot of examples. People say, well, how or when or why would I use a pendulum? And you've got some great stories about that. So tell us some stories. Just give us some examples of how this has benefited.
Well, actually, one of the ways that it's really benefited is people who have brought in rescue pets, because oftentimes a rescue comes to them and they don't know the backstory. So, and they see behaviors that come up. So this is some way, sometimes it's a way of accessing what the backstory is of your rescue pet. Like they seem to be afraid, very commonly they'll say, oh, they're afraid of men. A lot of pets are not as afraid of men, but they are of maybe, they draw back from the louder, deeper voices. So it might be helpful to know, are they afraid of men? Were they abused? Many pets were not abused, but something happened that they became afraid. So there's 2 different ways that you can do it. First of all, in this pendulum, rescue pet, I would use an essential oil and put it on the bead to just bring over a general calming sensation. Then, if you wanted to know more of why they're acting the way they are, then you can ask your questions and start out with simple yes or no questions. We'll go through the one that I started with. Are they afraid of men? No, it's not men. Is it the voices? Well, it may give you an inconclusive. It may just not give you a clear yes or no. Then you know to ask more questions. And you might find out that it's men with beards or checkered shirts or something strange like that. When you ask more questions.
Yeah, I've seen
yes
uniforms. I've seen color of skin. I've seen hats. I've seen all kinds of different things. But one of the things that we talked about this, I asked if you were writing a book, and you said you are intending on writing something like an ebook about this. But what would really be helpful, Michele, is not a lot. Oftentimes we don't know what kinds of questions to ask. But to give, to write a paper or write an article or something so that people understand and know what to ask, or if nothing else, at least a little booklet that comes along, with the pendulums, that would, here's how to ask the questions or whatever. And I know you're working on something like that. So that's interesting.
And I'm always available for people to contact me to ask.
Yeah.
An easy way is a text, because it's a quick, easy way to answer. But because I'm so invested in working with pets, contact me if you've got further questions, which is always helpful. But other ways that people have actually, you asked about some of the stories, ways that people have used the pendulums to find out about their pets is, I worked with a woman whose dog needed surgery. And it was, all right, does my dog need this surgery? It was an inconclusive answer. And it was like, well, what do I do now? That's the first question. What do I do now? Ask more questions. Does this dog need such and such repair? Yes, was the answer. And by asking just a couple of more questions, they came up with the answer of, look for a different procedure, a specialist with a different procedure that was less invasive. And when they did, it was very helpful because it was a more cost effective, but it was also a shorter recovery time. Yeah. Another way that a horse owner used this pendulum was on a rescue horse, and the rescue horse was always very hesitant with working with certain clients. their main clientele was children, um, children with special needs, a variety of special needs. And what by using the pendulum, when their horse refused to work with certain children, they thought there's something going on here. They discovered that their horse only wanted to work with the most difficult cases and was very calm, but it was through a pendulum that they learned that it's not just all children, but the horse preferred working with the more difficult cases.
In that odd. That's really,
Yeah.
that's different. What about situations where it's just communication? I mean, oftentimes, I ask Tallulah back here, I just, say, what do you want? I mean, she'll come to me in the evening and she'll do that nudge up under your arm, and she'll sit there and she'll yip at me. And it's like, so even then I go through a series of, do you want to go outside? Do you want to go for a walk? Do you want a chewy? Are you hungry? You'll go through those things. Do you have to go potty? And you wait for her to go. She'll sit there and stare at you until you go, oh yeah, that's it. So
yeah,
that's kind of fun. But a pendulum might be real helpful for those situations. For
the way I would
don't
probably
communicate.
Yeah, probably then the way I would use it is I would start with, does Tallulah want something more than just my attention? Yes, Tallulah wants something more than just my attention. All right, then I know I can go through a quick series rather than her keep nudging and bruising my arm with all the nudges. Yeah. Does she want to go for a walk? No. Does she want an extra treat? Yes. Or if you get a few no's, then you can, kind of know the routine of what your pet tends to like, but you can ask a few more questions. But if this pendulum, if she's wearing the pendulum, you don't need an extender. It just helps remove your energy one more step from your pet's, so it's a clearer communication with your pet. But that you only need the small pendulum to give you the answers to get answers. But you can it still works with the yes and the no's, and you can still get all that information.
So talk to me about picking dog food or pet food.
Oh, that was a good one.
There
was a person that I worked with that needed to change dog foods, and they asked their vet, and their vet said, well, try these brands. They went to the pet food store with their little pet and pendulum, and went across through all these different brands, and because they could not find any of them that the vet recommended, and they came across one that they just kind of moved it along all these different brands. And then all of a sudden they noticed that it was starting to activate on one of the brands. And so they wrote the name down, went back to their vet and said, what about the such and such a brand? And their vet said, oh my gosh, I forgot about that one. That's an excellent choice. The best one, probably the best one that you could have chosen out of the ones I suggested. So they've used it in practical ways. People have also used the pendulum when they've gone on vacation and had their pet with a sitter. And so that their sitter called and said, Ellie's kind of quiet. I think there's something wrong. Then they could have their pendulum and say, is Ellie okay? Yes, Ellie's okay. Is she just missing me? Yes, that's what's happening. She's missing me. Is there anything physically wrong with Ellie? No, there's nothing physically wrong. So they can access information about their pet from a long distance.
So Michele, because I'm asking this because of your Reiki, experience.
Yes.
Can you do a good, viable energy healing session with an animal from a distance?
Yes.
Okay.
So
then, if you went on vacation and somebody called and said, I think there's something wrong with the dog, you could actually do if you had the dog's pendulum with you, you could actually do that from where you are instead of them doing it, because they're not going to know how to do it, right?
Right. You can, by having a pendulum, there's so many things you can do remotely. You're accessing their spiritual information.
Right. And so people don't realize, Michele, people don't realize that when it comes to Reiki, when it comes to, like long distance tarot readings that I do, and your intuitive and your angel readings, which are amazing, people don't realize that the other realm does not have the same time and space that we have. There
Very
isn't
true.
time and space, so it can be done long distance.
Yes, it can. Most of my work I do long distance just because it's easier.
Right.
And then you can access the person that you want to work with from any distance. So it's very helpful. The one thing I do want to say about pet pendulums, all of them that I work with are vibrationally tuned, both to connect with the highest spiritual energies, including the angels, so that the answers that you access are the most pure and clear for that once it's calibrated to your pet, with your pet, because they also have guides and angels around them.
So if somebody was really interested in this, they could, I mean, they can come to you and you can help them. You can work with them to help them get the right stuff for their pet, what they need. Now, I know that when you're selling pendulums at the show, you've got them that are already there. But when people call you and want specific work done, I mean, those are don't you do that custom? Isn't like some of that stuff custom? What's the difference between your custom pendulums and there's just the ones you sell at the show?
They're all custom. Well, if there's something specific you want and custom made, then we would do that. But otherwise, I have somebody who makes all of the I actually get pendulums from a couple different sources, and they're all specifically made for different purposes. This one has an amethyst on it and a crystal and the lava stone. So there's another one. Pardon?
There's a specific reason for each pendulum. Okay.
Right. And this one, and there's always any pendulum that you get from me will explain something about the pendulum, like what does the stone represent? What does, or how do you access it if you want to use oils? Or I have one here that has a little bell on it. What does the bell signify? It's bringing in the good spirits or things like that. So it's not a bell that makes noise, so it's not going to startle your pet.
Or letting you know the cat's on the kitchen counter again.
And you know, when it comes to cats, that's a very interesting one too. I worked with a couple of paranormal investigators, and they started saying, well, they wanted to see if they could do something different with their pet. And they had a cat, and their cat had a pendulum. And when we used a specific essential oil on that pendulum, they would let the cat go at the door, and then wherever the cat stopped, they knew to set up their equipment, because that's where they would find their first most intense activity, paranormal activity. Because cats are very sensitive to the veil, it really helped them with their work that way.
So do you think that the essential oil on the pendulum or on the beads, do you think that it attracted the spirit energy?
No, what that does is it helped the cat to see through the veil a little more easily. It eased the job of the cat, not the spirits. The spirits were already there. It helped the cat versus
the cat find the spirit instead of the spirits finding the cat.
Yes, well, the cats will find the spirits, but by using a certain essential oils in that, it just aided the process in a more expedient manner. That's
kind of fun. Well,
it is.
Okay, so if somebody wants to reach out and they want more information, it's okay to either call you, email you, or text you. They can
my webpage,
your website too. So shall I put all that? I can put all that information, down below in the comments. And so you're ready. And sorry, somebody keeps. Sorry. All right. So I thought I had the volume turned off. So I'll put that information, but exactly what are you? Oh, I wanted to ask you too. The essential oils that if people get them with the pendulum, those are refillable through you too, right? There's
absolutely.
Okay. So because they don't have to replace the pendulum just to get the oils, they can get the oil from you separate. No. Okay, so
they can get the oil separate. They can get the pendulum separate. Mm-hmm.
So tell me exactly what you're offering and like how much it costs and And do they, and yeah, we've already talked about that they don't need to buy more than one if they have two pets. But if they have more than two pets, they should buy, so kind of tell us a little
It
bit
would be
about
recommended.
what they can get from you.
Well, if they're looking for something very simple and just want to use essential oils, I have little charms. They're just little resin figures that have felt on them that you can just use an oil with. And there's a variety of different colors and characters. Those are $8 and $8 for a small bottle of oil, or together it's $10 for the two of them. However, if you want a full pendulum, pendulums are $20. And again, you can get the oil for $5. Refills are just $3. And the extenders, just a simple extender to add on to it, to your pendulum, is $10. And they do need to, because they're custom, they're individually made. I don't know it. I don't have pictures of all of them on my website. Instead, it's easier to contact me to find out what my supply is, or if there's a special thing, special needs or
Sure.
look that you want. And then I can easily have it custom made within a few days.
And also, let me say that we're in the middle of August of 2023, so because this video will be up for a long time. And so prices are subject to change, availability of, the configuration of your merchandise or what you're making would always be subject to change. So it's always worth a conversation. Well,
Yes.
I am just amazed by all of this. I think it's so much fun, and it's fun to see, it's fun to see you selling them at the shows and have all the, the people are just fascinated by it. We all of us that have animals, you can see Tallulah in the background here, and and she knows you, so
Yes,
she can't stay off your lap when you're here. She thinks she's a lap dog, just like
she is a sweetheart.
Yeah. So anyway, what do you have coming up? What have you been? Oh, tell me about the teas. Because we have a few minutes. Tell me about you have the dog and cat, the fairy teas.
Well, I do have pet-friendly teas. Tea is as beneficial for a pet as it is for us. It has the antioxidants, the anti-inflammatories, and all those things that pets can benefit from. The only thing you need to make sure it's a tea that a pet can have, and it's a milder tea. You dilute it more and you cool it down more, and they're very good for them. And if somebody wants to, people like to have celebrations with their pets. We have little fairy teas that we can do where for the people in attendance, there will be a fairy story told, and we'll serve them some teas and treats and things like that. It's also something I do with people that without their pets, that's very fun to do as well.
I cannot believe that adults buy your time for a fairy tea and your book.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Blows my mind.
It's something I really enjoy doing. It's the fairies are definitely a part of our world, and they want us to know how much they are here to help us.
Right.
And the pets. I think that's the way I started out very young, connecting with the fairies, and then they helped me connect with the animals, and they're there to help us with our animals as well as any other way in our life.
Yeah. That's amazing. Well, so what do you got going on now? Are you in getting, I'm away from the area now, so unfortunately I will not be. And I don't know, because we're talking about maybe coming back up there in October, so I might be able to slip into, well, that'd be great, slip into a couple of these psychic fairs that I missed so badly being on the road. But so you've got, for people that are in the upper Midwest, upper central Midwest, have you already booked for the fall session? I have.
Where
are you going to be?
On Saturday, I will be in Fergus Falls. I will also be, September is more, for some reason this year, September is one of my lightest months. But I'll be in Brainerd, St. Cloud, Rochester. The easiest way to find out is to connect either on my webpage or Facebook, or it's always on Facebook where I'm going to be, or on my webpage too.
Well, I'll make sure that I put links to all that stuff, in the column below. thank
Thank you.
you so much for coming on today and having this conversation with me, because the pet pendulum thing is brilliant. I've never seen it before. I've never heard of it before. And I do a lot, I'm always searching for stuff.
Mhm.
Never heard of it. And so I think it's just really brilliant.
I just think it's I'm always looking for more ways to communicate and to connect with pets. And
Sure.
I just think it's a fascinating and such a brilliant way for us to understand our pets. And when I bring my dogs to the events, I use an essential oil to just make sure that their energy remains calmer and doesn't mix too much with all of the people who touch them and interact with them, so that they don't come home depleted and sick. So there's
Picking up
many,
other
many ways to
people's
use
negative
them.
stuff. Yeah.
Right.
Because they're so little, because your dogs are like 4 pounds a piece. They're like little teeny tiny things. So
They're little.
amazing. Well, thank you, Michele. I appreciate the conversation, and we will, I'll put that information below, and hopefully, people will be able to find you and know where you are. And
That'd
thanks
be great.
again. And I'll talk to you soon.
Thank you, Lynn. It was great
Bye.
talking with you. Bye-bye.
Gee, wasn't that a fun discussion with Michele? I have invited her back to talk about angel communication and how angels present themselves in our lives, because she's very, very in tune with that too. And that's one of her biggest draws at these events. So I wanted to also let you know that I just recently completed a video on using a pendulum to clarify a tarot reading as opposed to pulling another card. I will put that in the end cap, and I do hope that you will watch that one next. Anyway, until next time, bye-bye.